Now, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is continuing to take on K Street lobbying. Now, she just recently called for a total ban on the revolving door that will allow lawmakers or allows lawmakers to jump from Congress into sweet lobbyist positions as soon as they leave office. Now, in a tweet, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that former members of Congress should not be allowed to turn right around and leverage their service for a lobbyist check. Quote, I don't think it should be illegal at all to become a corporate lobbyist if you've served in Congress. Well, that's an incredibly strong statement. I agree 100%. They should be completely banned. Now, she says, look, if we can't get a ban, then at minimum, there should be at least a long wait period. Now, she didn't go into the specifics of how long it is, but I would think maybe somewhere around 10 years, at least. You know, you serve in Congress, you got to wait at least 10 years if you want to be a lobbyist. But that said, really, I would just go for a complete lifetime ban. I mean, that's my preferred position, right? Lifetime ban. Get them gone. Get them gone. So now, right now, like I said, the waiting period, depending on the state, varies either from no time at all to maybe 2 years. Kansas, for example, has no waiting period. So we got to do something about that. Again, I would like to ban people for life from lobbying if they ever do public service. I know Republicans will scream and howl and say, oh, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. How are they going to influence politicians? But with your vote. That's how we're all supposed to influence our politicians and not do that, actually going out and voting instead of going and bribing our politicians, which is essentially what lobbying is doing, right? So now, to show you how bad this is, right? How many people become lobbyists? After the Democratic so-called wave in 2018 midterm elections, 44 lawmakers left office, as it makes the Democrats and Republicans, right? Now, a public citizen analysis released on Thursday found that of those 44, 26 were working for lobbying firms, consulting firms, trade group, or business groups working to influence federal government activities. They left office, or let's be honest, were kicked out of office, and now they use the clout, the relationships with their former lawmakers, politicians, in order to influence them, in order to lobby them so that they will support the corporate agenda. Tax cuts for the rich, deregulation, or let's be fair, there's also some good things that they lobby in favor for, like, for example, on behalf of organizations like Planned Parenthood, right? There are also lobbyists or lobbyists like, Planned Parenthood is probably the best example of that. And I can't really think of any other sort of progressive lobby groups. Essentially, they don't exist for the most part. But anyway, among those that made the switch were former Representative Joe Crowley. So Joe Crowley was the incumbent that AOC ran against and beat. Joe Crowley never visited his district, and Joe Crowley even sent, and this was totally embarrassing for him, he sent a surrogate to debate AOC. I mean, how demeaning is that, right? I mean, I'm not even going to go and debate this person. And she ends up crushing him, and then he immediately runs to K Street. And he is now, of course, a corporate lobbyist. Now, another Democrat is former Representative Mike Capuano, who's a Suffolk County, Massachusetts Democrat who was beaten by Ayanna Pressley. Now, Public Citizen President Robert Weissman took aim at those two in a statement and said, quote, no lawmaker should be cashing in on their public service and selling their contacts and expertise to the highest bidder. Retired or defeated lawmakers should not serve as Sherpas for corporate interests who are trying to write federal policy in their favor. So it didn't necessarily call them out by name, but nonetheless, those are just two of the examples that Weissman was looking at when it came to federal lobbying. He also said, quote, we need to close the revolving door and enact fundamental and far-reaching reforms to our corrupt political system. Agreed 100%. Now, how exactly would they do that? Well, again, a lifetime ban would be fantastic. Now, Public Citizen provides their own path by saying that several pieces of legislation would strengthen ethics laws for former government officials. The For the People Act, H.R. 1, which passed the House of Representatives, that's a good piece of legislation, would enact sweeping reforms that would raise ethics standards all over the government. H.R. 1 would define strategic consulting as lobbying for former members of Congress, subjecting this activity to the existing revolving door restrictions. The legislation would also bar former executive branch officials from doing strategic consulting on behalf of a lobbying campaign, as well as making direct lobbying contacts for 2 years after leaving government service. Again, that is a start. It's good, but it's a start, and it's not enough. Now, AOC has an interesting fix for this as well, a partial fix. Not only does she agree, of course, with the lifetime ban, but she also says, look, people would be less interested in taking these lobbying positions if congressional pay was a little bit better. Well, now that's interesting, right? Because congressmen make $174,000 a year. Now, look, when you look at Washington, D.C., like you and I, like I'm sitting here in Michigan and I'm thinking, I'd love to make $174,000 a year. I'd be rich. But then again, I don't live in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is incredibly expensive in order to live. So a lot of these Congress people, some who, of course, get into power because they want to sell out and they want to make a lot of money, will look at these, lobbying contracts and say, yes, I'm going to serve 4 years, I'm serve my term, or I'm going to win, serve my term, then I'm going to go lobby on behalf of a giant corporation, and then I'm going to be rich. And then, of course, there are some that want to serve earnestly and say, well, I can't really afford to do this, so maybe I'll get a lobbying job afterwards. And that's how you get corrupted by the system, right? So now you have this happening, right? So AOC says, okay, well, why don't we fix that? Why don't we make the pay a little bit better so that people can afford to live in Washington, D.C., as well as their, home areas, and not want to take these corporate jobs or these corporate lobbying jobs. That's part of it. And so that's an interesting idea, but so is the ban. And I think I actually am in favor of the ban much more. But not only that, but there's also something that I would like to throw out there, another idea, and that's getting all the money out of politics. I mean, corporate cash is the biggest influencer on our politicians. You eliminate that, you eliminate lobbyists. You solve the biggest problem of our representatives not representing the people, but representing corporations. Now, AOC does not take corporate money. She doesn't take PAC money, and that's great. But as long as that exists, we're going to have politicians like Joe Crowley who take that money, don't represent their district, represent the corporations, and then when they're done, just go into these lobbying jobs. So we need to take that out. We need to get that out. And we need to actually make some real reforms. And so I like that AOC is talking about this and presenting new perspectives and new ideas because we've got to solve this problem if we ever want to have our government actually represent us. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.